16-year-old Shania was born on March 29, 1996, and was from Dallas, Texas. She had been singing in her church's choir for years and was a talented athlete who ran track and played basketball and soccer. She had just recently transferred to Hebron High School as a sophomore and had dreams of attending college on a track scholarship in her future. On her second day of school, Shania planned on staying after school for a physics class tutoring and told her mother to pick her up afterwards. During the session, Shania sent her mom a text saying she was almost done, and Sherry parked in front of the school around 4 p.m., waiting for her. But strangely, she never came out to meet her. She sent a text and called Shania repeatedly, but she did not answer. She then went to a nearby Starbucks and used her laptop to try to locate her phone without success. Sherry returned to the school and found the physics classroom locked and dark, and then contacted the teacher, who said Shania left after the tutoring was finished at around 4:15 p.m. A group of teachers and coaches helped Sherry search the school and nearby football stadium for Shania, but they never found her. When Shania never returned home, her mother reported her missing the next day, and a large-scale search ensued. At first, it was unclear where or how Shania could have vanished. The detective assigned to the case looked through her phone records and noticed she last spoke with a 903 number shortly before she left her tutoring class. When the detectives traced this number, it led to 30-year-old Franklin Davis, which became an immediate concern because at the time of her disappearance, she had an active case of sexual assault against him. In March 2011, Sherry noticed texts from Shania's phone from a person named Wish, whom she knew was Franklin Davis's nickname. In one of the texts, Franklin wrote, "Just want you, but can't fully have you yet." And when Sherry confronted Shania about the messages, she began to cry. When Sherry confronted Franklin, he said she was lying, but she did not buy it and said she would go to the police. In an attempt to beat her to it, Franklin called the police on himself and told the officer he did not know who it was that was texting him from Shania's phone and that he was playing around. Later, he would admit to texting Shania, but instead said that he was trying to inform her that she was too young, and that's why he could not see her any longer. The next day, Shania confided in her sisters that Franklin had sexually assaulted her on 4 occasions and threatened to kill her and her family if she told anyone about it. Soon after, her mother contacted the police, and he was arrested and scheduled for court dates. He was arrested on rape charges in July 2011, but was released on bail just a month later. Shania was planning to testify against him in his trial in October 2012, which was a month away. In those months in between, the family moved to Carrollton, Texas, and Shania attended her new school, Hebron High School. On her second day at school, she would vanish. Once the detective spoke to Franklin over the phone and broke the news that she was investigating a missing child, he acted very concerned. When he was interviewed at the police station, he said he felt that Shania falsely accused him of the assaults, and he denied any knowledge of the 903 phone number or further information on Shania's whereabouts. It only took another day until Shania Gray's sad fate came to light. A cyclist who was riding by a trail next to Trinity River stumbled upon a corpse of a teenage girl and called authorities. Her autopsy revealed that she had 2 fatal bullet wounds in her shoulder and back with a .38 caliber pistol. The killer had also stomped on her neck until she stopped breathing. At the same time, Franklin eventually took responsibility for Shania's murder during the interview. He explained that 2.5 months before she disappeared, he created a fake profile on Facebook pretending to be a teenage boy with the nickname D. This was his second attempt to get in contact with Shania, as she did not accept the request from the first profile he created named Jasmine Brown. He eventually started to text her, telling her he knew some of her friends and was looking for a new friend, someone to get to know. He persuaded Shania to trust him and induced her to talk about her first time she had sex and other personal matters, and she eventually talked about the assaults. She explained to D, "What happened, it f***ed my mind up, it really did." She told him she was going to start therapy and did not want to talk any further. She also wrote, "He got into my head. At first I was going to cover for him. That's how stupid I was. He thinks he's going to run away from that. Not like that. I was a child." Shania babysat for Franklin's family, but she didn't keep the job for long once the assaults took place. She also explained that while she was babysitting his kids, they did not have adequate clothing, shoes, or food, so she would take them to the store for food whenever she'd babysit, which made them so happy. She wrote that she kind of felt trapped, like the kids wasn't going to have what they needed unless I came, and if I did come over, I ran the risk of running into him again. As a result, she said she was intimidated by him and her grades began to drop in school. He recorded these conversations and felt that her accounts over the phone did not match police reports and felt he got what he needed. He didn't talk to her in a while, but somehow decided that he wanted to talk to her face to face and renewed contact through this profile. Dee convinced Shania to meet him outside of school on September 6th, and when she came to the car, she was surprised that it was Franklin and said, "Oh sh*." But then he reassured her he wasn't going to hurt her, and she got into his car anyway when he said he wanted to talk about the upcoming case. He began questioning her about the sexual assaults, and it was clear that he did not want her to testify against him. He drove her to the trail where Shania was later found. On their way, she spotted the gun in the car and asked if he would harm her. He simply replied that he came to talk. However, when they got there, he immediately shot her twice. He said Shania's last words as she stumbled and before he stepped on her neck was, "Why, Wish?" As he stepped, she grabbed his leg for about 3 seconds, then let go. He then asked her to forgive him before driving off. That night, Franklin picked up his wife after work in her Dodge Stratus. When she got in, she noticed a strong smell of cologne in the car and wondered if he was trying to cover up the smell of a woman. They then drove to the hospital because he said he had injured his arm at the gym. However, he only waited about 10 minutes and then left before even seeing a doctor. They went home and took a bubble bath together, and she noticed Franklin was being more affectionate than usual and noted they were intimate that night. During his interview, his wife gave the police consent to keep her car for processing. With cadaver dogs, they showed a positive reaction to the Dodge Stratus. They then received records that his phone was at Hebron High School at 4:01 p.m. on September 6th. The confession led to Franklin's indictment of capital murder. He testified that he killed Shania because she ruined his life and still denied the assaults. He said he lost his job, couldn't provide for his family, and his wife looked at him like he was less of a man because of her supposed lies. He blamed his actions on his evil alter ego named Wish. 3 of his baby mothers testified against him, describing multiple instances of cheating and domestic violence against them. His current wife testified that on at least 20 occasions, he became extremely violent with her and choked her. She said she did not call the police or tell her family about these assaults because he once told her about his horrible childhood and she didn't want to become one of those people who abandoned him. She felt ashamed of her failure to report his abuse and planned on divorcing him after the trial. Shania's mother testified and described the effects of her daughter's murder on the family. At some point, Franklin briefly escaped custody and injured a deputy prior to the trial, which caused her terror. The defense, however, rode with his past in hopes of the jury understanding Franklin. As a child, Franklin lived with his 6 siblings, mother, and grandfather in a small apartment in a poor and dangerous neighborhood in St. Louis, Missouri. His sister testified that their grandfather molested all the children in the house, and there were other ancestral activities. His mother shot another resident of the housing complex, and all the children were then placed into foster care. At some point, she was released and moved to where the children were and resumed her role as a parent. However, she was arrested again for violating parole and sent back to prison. But in 1997, she was brutally raped and murdered. Unfortunately for Franklin, his life story did not save him or excuse any of his horrific actions. The jury found him guilty of capital murder. He was sentenced to death on November 16, 2013, and he still sits on death row. The prosecutor said, "Shania Gray finally has closure. He tried everything he could to drag her name through the mud for the last year and a half, and a jury finally stood up to him." In an interview he gave from jail, he blamed his mental health for what happened, saying, "I didn't plan on hurting her. I was fighting demons. It was like a different person was in me."
And when she said, "Why I wish," I felt sorry for him. It was like I went from rage to like light switch cut back down to where I was the current person that I was when I first met her. I helped her get out the water. And when I helped her get out the water, she had laid down after she got out the water. And it was like the light switch flicked back up again. And I sent her home.
During the trial, Sherry said her surviving son is autistic and does not speak. She added he can't express emotions or understand what happened to his sister, but he knows she is gone. Sometimes, she told the jury, she plays him videos from her phone of Shania singing, and he kisses the phone. That was his best friend, she said. In 2016, police and the judge helped fund a headstone for her gravesite. I have also linked her memorial page in our description box below. May Shania rest peacefully in paradise, and may Franklin's day come sooner. And thank you all for watching.